Hello and welcome to Kitchen Party, Gâteau St-Honoré edition. Let me unmute everyone. Hello and welcome. Let's see. So if you are new to our live stream process, the way this works is Jared, who is here. I will do this. Jared, who is here, right next to me on our screen, but 2,000 miles away from me in real life in Seattle, Washington. Jared is going to bake a cake, and so we're going to talk to him a little bit up front about how that works and what he's making. And then, let's see. Liz and Ben are our guests for today, and we will be talking to them about all kinds of stuff related to culture and space and real estate and housing and the pandemic and walking around outside and possibly roller coasters and who knows what else, and food. So that's pastry. All going to happen. Pastry. Let's start out with Jared. I'm going to put you in the big box.
In the big box.
Jared, hello. Good afternoon.
Hello. Let me arrange my chiffon.
So yeah, it's cooler in Seattle than it is in Toronto this afternoon.
It's so much cooler.
Is it overcast? Does it in fact rain there all the time?
It doesn't rain all the time. It is the myth about 9 months a year of rain is because it's overcast about 9 months of the year. So it's that right now. It's cool, a little hazy. Space Needle's out. Yeah.
The Space Needle. It's good.
It's really nice. Every time you talk about Toronto weather, I'm just quietly thankful that I live in Seattle.
Oh man, I told you we have like one really beautiful week of weather. Then that was last week. now it's humid.
Now it's just hell.
We're praying for rain. Anyway, what are you going to prepare for us today?
A Gâteau St-Honoré, or St-Honoré cake. Mm-hmm. And mine will not look anything like that image that was up there. I'm not putting chocolate on it.
No.
It's basically a disc of pastry. I think it's usually puff pastry, which is what I'm going to be doing. I'm not making it. Sorry to disappoint everybody, probably, but we only have 2 hours. And that would take up all the time. Puff pastry, and then a ring of little profiterole sort of things. And then in the middle, there's a bunch of crème chibouste, which is a weird custard meringue sort of thing, which I've never had. I've never made it. I've never made this before, which is part of the fun. And then on top of everything else, there's another little ring of more profiteroles, and then caramel gets put over the whole, the battlements, the ramparts. And then you eat it.
What was the last stuff? Oh, by the way, your sister is here and says hi.
Yeah. I might be texting her a couple of times, being like, "What does pas de choux look like when it's done?"
So Jared's sister is in fact a pastry chef, and will be able to
when we did from the opera cake. Yeah, she was on for that, and I kept interrupting the stream to ask her how this worked.
Excellent. Yeah. Can we see, have you got like ingredients there for us to look at?
I do, but it's a nightmare to move the computer. But if you want to be like, oh, there's my
butter.
There's my latte. Butter, eggs. This is all for the choux pastry. Which is, I haven't made choux since I was like 10. Mm-hmm. So this will be a fun adventure. Puff pastry, which I forgot to get out earlier and defrost. So
it's an adventure.
It's an adventure. Yeah, sorry, and whatever else.
Stuff.
More eggs, more sugar for the custard thing.
Are you going to make the caramel while we watch, or is that?
I am.
All right.
Tragically, you will not be able to watch that process because I can't really keep my computer over at the stove.
Right. Yeah.
while mixing with hot sugar. That just seems like a recipe for disaster.
That seems dangerous.
Yeah.
What made you choose Gâteau St-Honoré of all the fancy cakes? that you could make?
My sister suggested it.
What made her choose it?
Yeah, because I after the opera cake one, I was like, Krista, what are some more elaborate things I can make? And I think this was her first suggestion. So that I've wanted to try it for a while, and obviously it's hard to get out and about right now and find pastry shops. So yeah,
indeed.
Yeah.
Who was Saint-Honoré, and why does he have a cake named after him?
He was the patron saint of bakers.
Really?
Yeah. Huh. And the chef, whose first name I don't know and whose last name was Chibust, invented the the custard thing that goes in the middle, and invented the whole assemblage itself, and named it after the saint, who's got a street named after him in Paris where all the patisseries are and all that. So
wow. Yeah. What did he do to get himself made the patron saint of pastry? Do you know? Or am I diving too deep?
I think part of it is that all of the patisseries are on, the Rue Saint-Honoré. And the other part is that the story of how he became a saint begins with, if I understand this correctly, and if I remember it correctly, neither of which may be the case, when he was a baby, somebody was like, he'll be the Bishop of Paris or whatever it was, and his nanny was like, no, I'll believe that. She was baking bread, and she was like, I'll believe that when this wooden paddle that I'm using to put bread in the oven blooms. And of course it did, and fruit did as well. And so she was like, oh shit, okay, I guess he is going to be a saint. Is that part of it? Okay. I don't know. Krista says, I was wondering if maybe he was martyred by being baked in a pie or something. But no, this is post-martyr times. Okay. This is like the Middle Ages, I think. Early medieval. They weren't doing so much of the martyring at that point. Right. They didn't really get into it. So what are you gonna? He was well laminated.
Pasted. What are you going to start with? What are you going to be doing in the background?
I'm going to preheat the oven.
Okay.
But I am going to start with the choux pastry, because you do have to sort of cook it in a pan and then pipe it.
Okay.
So.
Sounds tasty. Okay.
It's not the
What's the temperature? Ben and Liz, I asked you earlier whether do you have any good stories of I don't know, foods, exotic foods or exciting foods, ambitious foods that you've cooked or eaten, especially over the last little while. Does anything spring to mind as a good food story during the pandemic? I find people generally went one of either two ways. Either they got really ambitious and became those people who had like a sourdough starter with a name growing in their fridge, or they went the other way and it was just like takeout or order in. It was DoorDash all the way for the last year.
I definitely went mostly the other way, towards not being too experimental with making stuff. Like we cooked, but we didn't really cook anything fancy. Like I did a couple loaves of bread. Like your bread was probably as ambitious as I got. But I just got a cookbook that feels like my learning style. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see if that will take me towards more exciting things.
What's the cookbook?
Salt, fat, acid, heat, whatever that one is. Yeah.
Why do you feel like that one particularly resonates with you?
Because I've always been a very follow the recipe, and if something happens so that I can't follow the recipe, I get a bit spiraling and anxious. And this book is like, here's why recipes are the way they are. Learn the concepts, and I feel like that's what I need to kind of get that foundational understanding of why things are the way they are in cooking.
That's good. Yeah. I like it when it explains this is why you have to do this, and not just here's an instruction. I know it sounds weird, just do it, don't ask questions. Like I remember when I was like 12 or something, and I was making muffins. I think I was making muffins by myself for the first time, and I had this muffin recipe that said, as is often the case with quick breads, like add the wet ingredients to the dry ingredients and stir until just blended. And I, a child who did not know anything about baking, was like, I'm going to be real keener and stir it till it's like really well blended. It's like, oh no, these are bricks now. You can't eat that. Yeah, explain a bit how to explain, circle just blended because it needs to not be completely separated so that it will rise. Anyway, but yes, adventures in cooking when you have a good guide are a lot easier. Liz, how about you? What is your situation? What's your relationship to food?
So, I'm really obsessed with fermented foods. So I started making yogurt and I'd been making kimchi for a while, different kinds of anything pickled, it doesn't matter. Miso pickled.
Yeah.
Banh mi pickles. Well, I made pickles. And then I'm also obsessed with like regional American food, like really disgusting things. So I made these like cookies called Ohio Buckeyes, and then I made this dessert called Strawberry Dream. And then I threatened to make something called cookie salad, which I did not make. And under the thing, it said, can be a salad or dessert in the like
salad dessert.
I think I just kind of love. I think it's because I don't know. There's something like really interesting about all these like regional dishes, American regional dishes that just are so exotic to me. So I get kind of into that. Not like Jell-o salad, but like almost like. Yeah, almost. Yeah.
So are these like, are they made out of like things that come in jars and
Yeah, the cookie salad is. It's like tin mandarins. So yeah, exactly. It isn't, the cookie salad is Midwest. And then
the cookie salad. Just the concept of the cookie salad.
Strawberry Dream did have strawberries, whipped cream, Jell-o, and pretzels. And there was another dish. I don't know. A lot of it is stuff from a box, but I find it very charming. I don't know why. I just do. Yeah.
Is it actually whipped cream or is it like Cool Whip?
No, it did say cool. I refuse to use Cool Whip. I think in my house, it's like, we just call it like dessert air, or like it just, when you eat Cool Whip, you're just like, I don't, like, is this food? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, what even is it? What
is it? Yeah.
It's an edible oil product. Like, how is that possible?
Yeah. Yeah.
This seems wrong. Oh, and Chris mentions that Mikey's this is in reference to me over stirring the muffins. Endless stirring.
Oh, yeah.
Well, pancakes are a little bit easier because even if they don't rise, you can make them really thin and just pretend they were supposed to be crepes in the first place.
True.
Yeah, man. So yeah, have you tried the Jell-o salads with the molds and the like things suspended in Jell-o? Like, it's another salad that doesn't seem like a salad.
Not yet, because I listened to this podcast called Milk Street Radio, and they had someone who curated a selection of Southern salads, Jell-o salads, and it was like a really clever name for an art show. And I think it actually made me a little bit weepy the way she was describing it, and I was like, "What is happening? Like, I'm crying about Jell-o salad," but she said that it was very rare to eat like a green vegetable because they'll put like chicken wings in it and stuff.
Wait, chicken wings in the Jell-o?
Yeah. So it's pretty wild. Yeah.
One of my aunts was a pastor's wife in Wisconsin for a while, and she was from California. So she was so tired of their food because it was all, Jell-o salads and all that. And one time for a potluck, one of the women was like, "Oh, I'm bringing green salad." And my aunt was like, yes, finally, some vegetables. And then, of course, the woman showed up with a green Jell-o ring
Nice.
with, I don't know, cherries and sardines or something. Who knows? But like, yeah, it was green Jell-o.
Cherries and sardines. Oh my lord. Oh.
It was a wild time.
Liz, you have kids, right?
Yeah, I have 2 kids. Yeah.
Do they like the, I don't know, cookie salads? It seems like something that kids would either be really into or find too weird.
Yeah, they I got into it because I made this one dessert, Mango Royale, which is like a Filipino dessert with cream cheese and whipped cream, and then mangoes and graham cracker crumbs. And that was a big hit. And then that's what led me to Strawberry Dream, and then other kind of. But I think I was more like, I want to make a dessert with pretzels. So they really like it, but I think sometimes I'll get too esoteric for them, and they're like, so,
no,
not doing this. Yeah.
Too weird.
Yeah.
I haven't had one in a long time, but my mom was a very big fan of the Jell-o salad, and so we had a lot of those growing up. She would
the marshmallows, like that one with the.
The two that are coming to mind are she made a very orangey one that was like orange Jell-o, orange slices, shredded carrots, and just like orange Jell-o with a bunch of orange things in it, and then I think also cream cheese. Like there was a creaminess to it, and then she also would make a 3-layer one that was like there was a red layer, a green layer, and then a white layer that was just cream cheese or Cool Whip or something like that.
Is it like a red, green, and white? What flag is that? Is that Italian?
And we would often get Cool Whip itself, and I remember being so confused the one time we got the no name, and the no name just says edible oil product, and I think it's like dessert edible oil product, and like no name's just telling it like it is.
Yep.
Yeah, one of the fun things about those foods and like the recipes too is that they have names like Strawberry Dream. Like they have these kind of like 1950s wave of the future advertising names.
Yeah.
Like my friend used to make one called an atomic cake, which I think was like from the atomic era, and it was just like canned pudding, canned Jell-o pudding, box cake mix, and I think that was it actually. Like just a bunch of different kinds of those. It was like space age atomic cake. It's right. No name, keeping it real. That's right. They are. Yeah, they are a Canadian. Canadian brand of groceries known for their extremely basic packaging. It's kind of a running joke. Okay, I'm gonna put there's a way to do this. Let's see. I'm gonna see if I can put Liz in the big square. Whee! Hello, Liz.
Nice. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I wish I had better lighting. I turned over. Yeah.
No worries.
Okay.
It is we all kind of like work with what we have. I have good lighting now, but I might have to change it when like the sun changes position, as it tends to do.
Yeah.
So hi, we have not actually met. This is my first time meeting you at all because Jin Monroe introduced us after his guest appearance last week and said you would be a good guest. So I'm really interested and curious to hear. So I guess I'll start out by asking you about Picastro. Is that have I got that right? Is that the name of your band?
Yeah. It's just a band I've had for a really long time. It's kind of, I feel like I don't know, music's changed a lot in the last like 2 years, so I feel like it's I just been working on a grant today, and I feel like even just listing all the stuff I've done, it's like you can see it's just wild, like how fast things changed and
Yeah.
how. So I mean, I was supposed to go on tour last year, so it might happen this fall actually. We're waiting because 2022 is apparently all booked up already.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I'm gonna see how it goes, but basically, I have like a band, but it fluctuates too, and I'm pretty flexible. But yeah, I don't know how to talk about it really.
Well, what kind of music how would you describe your music in a situation like this for people who haven't heard you at all?
It's kind of like sad and melodic at the same time. I did actually have to pitch it for something else, and I described it as a cross between Godspeed and Yola Tango, which I think is pretty accurate. So that way you don't have to like search around for like what you can picture it like, so you can kind of know what it sounds like without searching too much. Anyway, yeah. So it's there's string players and synth and then sometimes I just play by myself because as you know, living in Toronto, it's like it's pretty stressful to get people to commit.
Yeah.
When there isn't a lot. I mean, traveling is great, but you need to work and pay your rent and all that. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. I've been watching a couple of music documentaries, and it's really nice when you see some bands that are like the reality of touring is like a little bit more at the forefront because everyone pictures something that is just not the reality. So, yeah.
How did you wind up in this band? Like, how did you? Because that's interesting to me. Is that the whole thing of being in a band, which I have not done, but it can be a really intense relationship because you spend a lot of time with these people if you're like, I guess practicing to get on tour, and if you're on tour and stuff like that. So how did you guys find each other and decided that like you got along well enough to be in a band together?
I started it about 20 years ago, and I was playing I mean, at the time in Toronto, have you read Jonny's book, The Any Night of the Week?
Not yet, no.
I mean, it kind of chronicles it pretty well, but there was a period of time in Toronto where if you didn't play loud music, it was maybe harder for you. So, and I was tired of playing loud music, and I think I had like a specific thing in mind. So I started, and I'm trying to think of it. To be honest, it was really hard in the beginning because I needed a string player that was going to do kind of wild things. I ended up meeting somebody through the Royal Conservatory.
Oh wow!
Which is unusual. But then after that, I had a few string players in a row who were all classically trained, and one of them told me it took them about a year to like understand what I was getting at. So yeah, you're right. It's a very weird, intimate relationship. And then everyone else in the band were musicians I already knew, and they came more from like the hardcore scene or like punk rock. Because there's something about it that's like a little bit angular and a little bit weird, and so it never really like now when I listen to music or I want to check something out, I'm always like I have to remind myself that like my version of pop is very different. So I have to sort of scale it that way. But you meet people that I think you are artistically compatible with, but then you're right. Personally, you can go on tour with someone and realize that, maybe they're not so considerate in this one way, or they are irresponsible in another way. So you're right. It's intense. Like but at the same time, like I'm very, very close to a lot of people I've played music with, because it's hard not to be, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the relationships are close, but yeah, I don't know. I hope I'm giving you enough information.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's like there's no rules. We're just here to hang out. But this is kind of reminding me a bit like when I prior to this, I had a podcast on the Megaphonic Podcast Network, which is what this is kind of part of, about social connectedness. And I did one on the music scene, and I talked to my friends Kristen Fung and Simon Borer, who was in a band called Entire Cities for a while, and that was interesting because Kristen is like, I guess she's like maybe 10 years younger than Simon, and in the time from like when his band was active in the 2000s to like the late 2010s, the scene had changed so much, and they were just talking about like how different it was to be like a practicing musician now from what it was in like 2005. And in 2005, like everyone was in these bands that had like 20 people in them, and like half the people on stage were like dancing or playing the triangle or whatever, and everyone was singing, and then it kind of contracted to like these much smaller bands. Is that something like, did your band sort of evolve over time with these trends and changes in the industry?
No. No, we never had like go-go dancers or like no, I mean I think sometimes I feel like I feel left out, but at the same time I realize that just sticking to this thing is actually like, it's considered admirable, you know, in certain parts of the world, or there's nothing wrong with it, is what I'm trying to say. It's like it's fine to just do your thing, and then and just be, you know, it's fine to be weird. Like you'll find you'll find the people who like you, and I do remember reading a review of a band where somebody was like, I don't even remember which band it was, but they were like, there's too many people in this band. Like, it's clearly that guy is friends with that guy, but he wasn't really doing anything. And then I remember laughing because I think it was Polyphonic Spree, and it was
well, that's the perfect example.
yeah. So I mean, that's cool, but it doesn't really work out in the end. You can't really hear anybody, and then
it's not very practical. But I just remember like the mid 2000s. I think more people in Toronto were in the hidden cameras at one point than were not. Like there were just that many people. I remember going to see them in like 2005, and there were like 40 people on the stages, and like it was crazy. It was kind of fun for a while, but yeah, it's not really a sustainable, practical way of running a band, I would think.
No, yeah, I mean, they were fun. Yeah. I really had fun at their shows, but yeah, it's true. We could probably have a board game called like who was in the hidden cameras. Like we could all be like different members or something. Yeah, Joel.
Yeah, exactly.
Maggie. Yeah.
But what is it? Like 6 degrees of Maggie McDonald.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh my God. So what's happening now? Yeah, like what are the challenges right now with like having a band? What are you sort of, as you put the grants together, what are you trying to do?
I think one thing I've noticed I mean, maybe it's because I have kids, so it's becoming more obvious to me, and musicians will not like me saying this, but I feel like music in general is maybe experiencing a bit of a culture shift, and I don't think that it's really as important as it used to be. And I'm not saying it's not, but like, for example, like I'll see, if I think an 18-year-old is going to play a video game and hang out with their friend that way, and there's maybe music in the background of the game, then that's how they're, you know, just because I feel like no one really listens to albums anymore, like a whole album, start to finish. And
I'm still listening, but I'm just going to put Jared's visual here because Puff Race 3, so we can watch that while you're talking.
Yeah.
But yeah, the video games, the shift to video games, I feel like when, like, I'm not sure, I'm making assumption that you're like close to my age cohort, but when I was a teenager, for sure, and I was in high school, like a lot of your identity as a teenager, when you're like trying to figure out what tribe you fit into, was around like what kind of music you listen to. Like, were you with like the punk kids or the heavy metal kids or the pop music kids? And now I feel like there has been the shift towards it's now a lot more about like what video games are you playing?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And that's how they socialize, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But nobody's running out to buy a record and listening to it for 6 months. Like, nobody does that. So, and that's okay. But like, I just have to think about music in terms of like, maybe I just have to. And I think like I'm not really great at social media, and I find that like I have to. It's a part of it in a way where I have to feed into it, like sourdough starter. I just have to like feed it, and I don't know. I don't want to fight it. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not one of those who's like, oh, I hate Spotify. It's like, you know what? If you hate it, you're just fighting. It's just a losing battle. So, music's just changed in that way. But it's, there's lots of things about it that are still really great. And, it's just a community, like a lot of other things. And that's the best part of it. So
that is really a really nice part of it. Yeah, I think the community aspect of it. So what is what are you hoping for in the next, I guess, year or two? Or can you even like think ahead at this point in terms of like what you want to do with the band? Or is it like recording, or do you have shows that you'd like to do? Or sky?
I mean, if nothing happens in overseas, then the tour will happen in the fall, and then I have things on the go right now for next year, but I feel like I can't really say what's going to happen next year because of the bottleneck of bands that have pushed all their tours back. Is like nobody wants to go on tour at the same time as certain people. Like, I don't want to. I mean, I don't want to play in Europe. Like, there's a Bonnie Prince Billy show on one night, and then an Angel Olsen show on this. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't want to bother. So, I can't say, but I'm just recording a lot, and I'm trying different things. Like, I kind of just want like a dance band, not a dance band, but like, something, I don't know. I just feel like I need levity right now. I think a lot of people need levity right now.
That's a good point. Yeah.
It's not a time for, it's just not a time for heavy. I just don't want to do that right now. So, yeah.
That sounds good. I look forward to fun. When we can reemerge. Can you talk a little bit, because this was the other thing I was really curious to hear about, that you mentioned you were looking into the possibility of community land trust, or like a cultural community land trust. And I know like the community land trust idea is starting to pick up some traction here in Toronto, but I think it's the first time I've heard about someone doing one that was specifically cultural focused, which is super cool. So do you want to explain what that is?
Just a sort of communally owned, I would just like a communally owned piece of property to be used by different groups for cultural purposes, instead of just, whoever's got the most money. Like in Brooklyn, there's a venue called Antico's. I think it needs to be called Silent Barn. And
sorry, Jared. This is very. What are you doing right now? Because it's kind of rattly. What is it?
Oh.
Yeah, I did mute for a second because it was so loud. This is the finished shoe.
Oh, you're gonna pipe it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not gonna spoon it like a peasant.
Okay, we're gonna.
So I will be piping in a second.
Yeah, you might mute yourself, but I think we'll leave your visual up just because it's interesting to watch. Sorry, and Liz, please continue.
Oh no, I remember looking at that model about how it was like this venue that kind of got abandoned, but then got turned into like a theater space for teenagers or whatever. It can be anything, but like, I feel like we need something in the city that is kind of culturally relevant to a bunch of people. And I think the problem there is just with land trusts for residences, there's money sort of from the city, but for cultural spaces, I'm not sure what ongoing funding would be. That would be the main hurdle. But I think we're all pretty sick of just like, I just don't, if another pet spa or cannabis shop opens up in my neighborhood, I'm just like, fuck. So
yeah, we've lost so many like venerable music venues in Toronto over the last few years. Like even before the pandemic, it's just been a bit of a bloodbath. And and it's not just music; it's also like bookstores, and obviously most of the cinemas are gone. It's been really hard on them. And so that's really the idea of sort of taking the land trust strategy and applying it there and trying to save some space. Because I feel like it's so essential to the city having a cultural life of any kind, right? Is to have that space, is to have like space where you can experiment, and you don't just have to book a highliner, like a headliner every night in order to break even, because the overhead is so expensive. You can kind of instead have like an up and comer or someone who's experimental and has like kind of a niche interest or whatever, or it's so much of the life of the city is being squeezed out by the high rent prices here. That's really
totally, So I think the struggle would be trying to find, if it was a cultural space, I think the funding would be, I don't know how that's going to work yet. I looked into a couple. There's one I think around Regent Park that's sort of bubbling. I think it's a bit more for classical music, but at least they're trying. I mean, you have to be happy when anyone tries and support them. And so once I hand in this grant, I'll probably do more on it. But I mean, I've talked to Jim about it and Jonny about it because there was, I think, I don't remember what, maybe 2005, there was somebody who was putting on shows in like kind of derelict locations.
Right.
Do you remember the name of that series? It was like, I forgot the name.
They were, but they did one. Are they the ones that did one in the silos, in like the old sugar silos? Yeah. And it's all these legendary shows that I didn't go to and heard about afterwards, but I know the ones that you mean.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like that whole scene is kind of gone, and
there's been such a shit. That's the thing. Like there was this period in the mid 2000s when there was all this interesting, like experimental, really kind of open-ended stuff happening in Toronto, and that's been so crushed by. Well, I think like the having Rob Ford as mayor did not help, and then the like. The price of everything, the Shoppers Drug Martification of downtown, basically. And all those spaces have just disappeared and been turned into condos or whatever. So, So have you? By the way, just to just parenthetically, there is piping magic happening. Jared, this looks. I'm going to unmute you for a second. So. No, it says can't unmute your guest because they chose to mute themselves. So there we go.
This is so messy. I would not show this to Paul Hollywood or whatever.
Well, for a first piping attempt, this looks very pipedelic.
I don't think I've got enough of these to make a second row, so it's going to be more like crenellations than.
Yeah. There we go. It'll be very castle-esque.
Yeah. More of a Gâteau St-Honoré.
But those are going to puff up when they bake too, right? Like
they are, and I may have put them too close together, but I'm not really sure what's happening with them. So
yeah.
The recipe just says pipe them, and it doesn't tell you how much space to leave. So
right. Once again, recipes that could be more informative.
Yeah.
They figure you're a pastry chef. Anyway, this is I'm excited to see what this is going to look. How long, Jared, does it have to stay in the oven?
Good question. Bake for 15 to 20 minutes. That seems a little short, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, it's probably, it looks like the kind of thing that you put it in super hot and bake it fast, and it just flumps. It flumps up like a popover or something. What are you doing? Is that butter?
No, this is just water. I'm dabbing down these little soft serve ice cream sort of peaks.
Oh, there we go. Krista says this recipe is written for pastry students. It's mine from school, so they expect you to know what you're doing.
And I've made things with these components before. I've done quite a bit of baking, but I'm still not a pastry chef.
Right. Well, you're moving in that direction now. Okay, I am going to, Liz, if you don't mind, I'm going to move on to Ben for now and put him in the big square. Hello, Ben.
Hello.
So we have not seen each other for like a year or something. It's been one of those lockdown things. But how has life been? So can I ask you, you're at Hot Docs, which is a cinema, and as we were just saying, cinemas have been, it's been a rough go of it for the last few years, but Hot Docs has done a really good job of finding ways to stay relevant and keep going. So can you talk a little bit about what's been going on there?
Yeah, I mean, we have been lucky in a bunch of different ways, and I mean, some of that luck has been, I guess, the company being run in a pretty responsible way leading up to this, so that the finances were good when the pandemic started, and because of the relationships we have with ticketing systems and some digital film delivery systems, we were able to also make the switch to having a digital cinema really quickly. So were able to get our ticketing system to cooperate with this system that normally does digital delivery to cinemas, but was able to pivot to digital delivery as a streaming service. And so getting all these companies to work together with us, I think within 2 or 3 months, we had a digital cinema.
Wow.
And so we were able to switch the festival last year to digital with very little preparation, and it was stressful. But then this year we had the digital festival again, and we were able to prepare for a digital festival, and everyone knew it was going to be a digital festival from the beginning. And it felt, and it just finished, and I would say it felt very successful as a digital festival, both in terms of for filmmakers, for us financially, and for the patrons. And because it was a digital festival, we were able to expand to send documentaries to people all over Canada, which was really cool.
That is that's the upside of the whole digital thing, is that it is more accessible, and not just for people who geographically, for people who are in parts of the country who never get to see cool things, and also for people who might have mobility barriers to coming into the cinema. It's anyone can get at it. So Hot Docs is it's all documentary, right? So it's sort of the unique thing about the cinema. I feel like that's got to be helpful as well, in that people kind of seek it out, because those are films that might be harder to find elsewhere. There's there aren't that many people doing what you guys do, which is curate documentaries specifically, and kind of present them in a festival format as well as in a cinema format. So that's kind of cool. And what was the feedback that you got from? Because I know. Krista says, I was hearing hot dogs. Yes, we're the non-Torontonians. Hot docs is in What's Up Doc, is in documentaries.
Related to that, so we have apps that people can get to watch. Normally people watch through our website, but we also have some apps so that people can watch through Roku, through Apple TV, through Amazon Fire Stick. And our Amazon app, if you you have to go to amazon.ca and search for Hot Docs. And when that happens, pages of hot dogs material comes up. Hot dog, like custom hot dog ovens and all this stuff. And you have to click a little button that says, no, I'm searching for hot docs to be able to see the hot docs app. And then it's right next to some erotica about hot doctors.
I was gonna say, I'm sure there's like not say with the word hot in there. There's got to be like if your safe search is not on, you're gonna get some NSFW content in there.
But I do like that part of our official app instructions had to be to click the button saying you were not searching for hot dogs.
Yes. Oh, so we got a comment, Jared. I like how Jared dipped into the shot to laugh. So, yes, Jared,
that wasn't on purpose. I just happened to or wait. Right, some pun or
earlier, yeah, I think so. Are you? I'm just gonna quickly. Are you separating eggs? Oh, look at that.
This one doesn't want to. This is
separating
a stubborn.
eggs with your bare hands.
Yeah. Why?
So
come on.
Gooey.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I don't love this part.
Yeah, you're such a fan of having gooey things on your skin.
It's just a little bit mucusy, you know?
Ew.
Like holding a hagfish.
That's one thing you could compare it to. Oh my gosh. So then as everyone, gets their vaccines and things shift back to normal, how are you guys how is Hot Docs gonna move into the future? Are you going to continue to have a digital format as well? Or are you going to try and bring people back into the theater? How's it going to go?
I mean, the plan is both. We've been selling memberships to people in British Columbia and Alberta and all these places. So we can't just say no.
I'm sorry.
What happened?
That was unrelated.
Okay.
Krista.
Oh, I see. Sorry, Ben, go on.
Yeah, no, we've now that we've got this cross-country audience, we are definitely going to keep something going in the digital realm. We are definitely hoping and moving towards opening the physical cinema up again.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But the digital element is going to be an element of Hot Docs moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, subject to change, but that's the plan at this point.
Mm-hmm. Because you guys have a nice space. Are you going to be and that's always been sort of part of the way that you have survived as a cinema in these times, is that you've had a lot of cool events and stuff. So it's not just the difference between watching a movie in the cinema and watching it at home isn't just that you get up and go out, which you may or may not feel like doing. But there's you have speakers and you have performances and you have stuff going on. Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah, and we had a podcast festival earlier this year, and I feel like having the podcast festival in the digital realm was great because we were able to bring in a lot of podcasts that wouldn't necessarily have wanted to take the weekend or whatever chunk of time to come to Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And that was able to be international. That one, there was no limits on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like having it be this digital thing made it feel more like a podcast festival, because I would be working and just have the festival on as I was working, and I was able to participate a lot more than if I had to physically go into the cinema and watch a podcast.
Right. I do recall. I mean, I think 2 or 3 years ago, Chris, who's the Megaphonic, our glorious leader in Megaphonic, and I went to a couple of events at the podcast festival. And one thing that was nice about having it as an in-person festival was the networking, the getting to actually meet podcasters from all over and talk to them. And there were a lot of new podcasters. There were a lot of people who had 3 episodes out and were like, how do you keep it going? What do you guys do your secret? So that was it was kind of fun. It would be good to be able to do that again. Did you have I don't know, Zoom networking or
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was Zoom networking. There was to a small degree, but what we did have was chat rooms, text chat rooms that everyone could go in, and every live event had a text chat beside it. So a lot of networking was happening through that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool.
which that like definitely was where the in-person is the better experience.
Yeah. Although, I mean, this is the funny thing, and I think especially for I feel like 3,000 years old saying this, but the younger folks, the Zoomers, I mean, the way that people interact is changing, and we kind of think of, in person, getting together with a few beers in a pub to do the networking is the way to do it. But a lot of people now, and the pandemic has kind of like increased the degree to which this is true, but I think for a lot of young people are used to interacting through text and through like this and through video games and whatnot, and that's like a very natural space for them. So it's not just that we couldn't do it for a while because of the pandemic, but that does seem to be some kind of hybrid of incorporating that seems to be like the way things are going to happen going forward. Have you been doing a lot of like personal hanging out on Zoom or Zoom socializing over the last year?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I followed the pattern that I think most people followed of just having a whole bunch when stuff started. Like the way we were hanging out.
Yeah.
A lot.
Everyone was like, "Let's do Zoom brunch."
Yeah, and then I fell off hard and was really just. But I'm lucky enough to have my partner and another roommate in our place. So like, we became our social bubble. And I didn't do a lot of the online stuff. But now I have a book group, a book club that I meet with on a semi-monthly basis. And I've just started kind of dipping my toes in a Unitarian congregation. And so that is getting me to be more social with folks.
Well, that sounds good. Yeah, I think a lot of us went through that kind of trajectory at the beginning where it was like, we'll get together on Zoom, and we all got together on Zoom, and then we were all like, we're so sick of Zoom. There was this massive falling out about like a month to 6 weeks in, and then sort of the coming back to it, depending on whether or not you actually like could stand it at all or not. But that kind of leads me, the Unitarian thing leads me into the other thing I wanted to ask you about, which was you also have an experience of touring with a group of people in a cultural way, but acting rather than music. So do you want to tell us about that a bit?
Yeah, I mean, I was part of a traveling theater troupe for 5 years, and we were primarily faith-based, not universally, but most of our plays were either written in conjunction with or commissioned by Mennonite organizations to be like political Mennonite theater, challenging Mennonites, which at the time I very much considered myself one, challenging Mennonites to I guess live up to their progressive values in a sense. And to push them. And so it was like a combination of doing tours of primarily Mennonite or other faith-based communities or communities related to the political context of the play, and fringe festivals.
Nice.
So we also did fringe festivals, and we had some plays that, like we had one play that wasn't connected to any of the Mennonite stuff in an explicit way, and so that one was our primary fringe play. Then we also took some of the other ones to fringe festivals to be like, oh, like, could this work in a fringe context? And sometimes it did, and sometimes it did not. And what is politically pointy for Mennonites is bland, comfortable tokenism for a fringe festival.
Can you give me an example of that?
Yeah, I mean, we had a play called Bicycle Built for Two, which was about that one was written with a faith-based counseling service, couples counseling. And so it was looking at healthy relationships, how to maintain relationships, written with the expertise of the counselors. And so we had a brief scene that explored queerness to a very small degree, which doing that on Mennonite stages was like, we had people coming up to us afterwards crying, saying like, it is so important to me that I saw this gay character on a stage in a Mennonite church. Like my sister was kicked out for this, and to like see this happening. And like that scene made it so that there were some churches that we just weren't able to perform the play in. And they would, because it was like a small scene and not integral to the play as a whole, we would be asked, like, could you just take that scene out and then we'd be happy to have the play, which like we never did.
Right. What year was this?
Oh, this was, I'm terrible with years in general. I want to say 2014, 2015.
Wow,
Somewhere
not long
around
ago
there.
at all. Yeah.
No, not long ago.
Right.
Yeah, and so we did it at the Fringe then, and that play was the most financially successful we've been at the Fringe. People like wanted to come see it and loved it, but I think that like people often like to just see stuff that makes them comfortable at the Fringe. Yeah, like it wasn't pushing boundaries in a Fringe environment the way that it was in a church environment.
Yeah, totally. I can imagine that. That's really funny that it would play as, you know, a huge boundary pusher in one context and the comfort food in another one. It's the same play. So how big of a group were you as you around?
I mean, it contracted and expanded depending on the play. There's one play that was just 2 of us and a stage manager, so it would be 3 of us traveling around. And then the most was, I want to say 5 of us and a stage manager. I think it was as big. And that's for the traveling stuff. The troupe also did a couple, and has done since I've left, plays that like were just singular community-based plays that had huge casts because it was just getting a lot of the community to be a part of the play itself. But the touring stuff would be, I guess, 3 to 6 in terms of number of people traveling around.
It is also kind of a rock band sized group of people. Did you have like a tour bus or a van?
We had a minivan.
Minivan.
Yeah.
And how was that? Was that also because, you know, as I was, you know, saying to Liz, I'm interested in this idea of like they become like your family. This becomes like a really close knit group. And was that your experience as well? Yeah.
No, they whatever group of us was touring was the family for that time. And we leaned into that.
Were these usually people that you knew well before you went on tour, or was it like you're thrown together in a van and you got to learn to get along?
There was at the beginning there was a core 4, and by the time, like the person who was like the artistic director and who wrote and directed most of the plays at the beginning, it's expanded since, but the main writer and director at the beginning, I had become very close friends with him about a year before. And like the reason I was part of the group was because we'd been at a church potluck fundraiser, and people at our table were kind of brainstorming what other fundraisers could we do. And he said, I've written a play, we could put on a play. And he turned to me, and pretty much the first words he ever said to me were, do you act? Do you want to be in a play with me? So we put on that fundraiser together, and then I moved away. And while I was away, he contacted me, and in BC, he contacted me and said, I want to start a theater troupe. Like, would you be willing to move back to Ontario and be a part of it? And then in that process, a friend of his was filming a very low budget film across the country. So I joined the crew in that. And so we had spent, we had spent putting time together, putting on a play. And then we had also done this literal coast to coast, like Nova Scotia to Vancouver journey in a minivan before. And that was kind of our throw together time. So when the troupe started, we were comfy. But yeah, every tour, for the most part, like one or two new ingredients would be added to the mix, without any horror stories. Like, I mean,
that's impressive.
Without any interpersonal horror stories of the
Right.
group not being a good mix.
That suggests that there were horror stories. Were there any good ones that you can you can share?
We stayed with someone in Vancouver who got distracted talking to us while they were baking something, and almost like the smoke alarm went off, and there was fire, and we all there was a moment of almost putting water on a grease fire, but that was avoided at the last second.
That's pretty good though. If they didn't burn the house down.
No,
it's a positive thing.
The house was burned down.
I'm gonna do this. There we go. Because I kind of want you guys to, if you have questions for each other about the touring experience, to compare and contrast what the differences with a band and a theater group. It sounds like they're both fairly intense. Sorry.
I'm so mystified by the Canadian thing, because I'm just like, oh, it's so big. Like, it sounds.
Yeah.
I feel awful that I haven't traveled a lot in my own country, but I don't know how do you do like those long drives, and
I mean, we learned when Jonny and I did our first trip with the film crew. We were driving through the night and taking shifts, and it was not healthy or safe how we did it, and we kind of took that attitude into our first couple tours with the theater troupe. But once Jonny's partner became our stage manager, they kind of started putting like, no, this is not what you're going to be doing. You're going to drive for healthy amounts of time. You're going to make sure you get sleep. And I guess those long drives, I think, are what kind of made us feel like a family unit more than just coworkers putting on a play together, because those, I guess, that was kind of the kiln where we didn't have anything to do but talk to each other. And I can tend to be a bit introverted and just go into a book if I'm in the back seat, but because I didn't have I didn't have a valid driver's license, so I wasn't able to share in the driving responsibility. So I was often the person that had to be in the front seat, keeping the driver awake. So that kind of forced me out of what probably would have been my normal inclination to just open a book and read.
Did you have any driving games, or did you sing, or were there any things that you did to pass the time?
We sang. I mean, part of the Mennonite cultural pride is 4-part harmony songs. So we had a play that had Times They Are Changing as a unauthorized part of the soundtrack, and there's a beautiful 4-part hymnic sounding arrangement of it that was in the play, and so we tried to learn that. So that first tour, a big part of our game was seeing if we could actually do that well. And then we got to Saskatchewan, a small town in Saskatchewan called Laird that had a little community talent show right as we pulled in. Like, oh, we can show off and sing this song, and we were absolutely abysmal. It was.
You bombed in Laird.
We bombed in Laird, Saskatchewan. There was there's a town newspaper, and the reporter wrote a little article about the theater troupe that came through, and very pointedly did not mention that we sang a song, which we were grateful for.
I thought you were going to say that he actually said these.
Oh,
they're a good theater troupe, but their singing is terrible. They were too polite to quite do that.
No.
Liz, has there been a lot of road tripping in your band's history?
Has there been a lot of what? Sorry?
Road tripping, driving, long drives?
Yeah. Yeah. Mostly, yeah, some fun and some not so fun, I think. Sometimes there's like parts of Europe where you have to drive and they, there's like the Mont Blanc tunnel in Switzerland. And they hand you this pamphlet before you go in and it gives you all the rules. And then somebody will mention like this huge disaster that happened in the tunnel, like whenever about like, and then everyone's just like quiet for a really long time. And then once I remember, most recently, I have family in Queens, like in New York.
Yeah.
And I had a show in Jersey City, and I drove from Queens to Jersey City, and it took me an hour to get into the Holland Tunnel. So I'm not talking. There was distance. I'm talking just to get in. And I remember sitting there, and by the time I got to the show, I was like, I refused to do that. Like and like I don't know, I was by myself though. I'm trying to think of like more fun stories.
Are they done? Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they're beautiful. They look good.
Yeah, that's nice.
Trying not to melt anything. So.
I
gotta set this aside to cool so it doesn't.
Golden. So do they puff up? Or are they like hollow inside so you can?
They are.
Oh, nice.
Where am I supposed to put this? I did not think about it.
Okay.
Liz, when you were touring, when you stayed, would you stay in like motels or hotels? Would you stay in people's homes?
Mix for sure.
Mix. Okay.
So, yeah, I think like hotels, and then what are they called in Europe? Like, but I think they're called in Latin America too, like pensions, sort of.
Yeah.
Pensions. And then people's houses. Sometimes like really not desirable circumstances, where you're like, I'll sleep in the beach chair. Like, so yeah, good. It's just a mix of good and bad. I kind of like that part of touring, but sometimes when you're tired, it can be stressful, like, or you just want to go to sleep and someone's like pulling you somewhere and you're like, no, I don't want to talk. So yeah, it can be a mix there. I think the last tour I did was in Spain and Portugal with another person who was a Spanish musician. And she actually sort of would find out in advance where we were staying, and then if it was too far, we would try and get something else closer. And that actually worked out, because once we got an apartment that was like in a pretty nice neighborhood in Barcelona. So instead of us being kind of, like a little bit stranded, I feel like once I'm somewhere, I try and get used to whatever it is, and then I'll kind of navigate that way. But I really like having someone local who can help me if I don't understand something.
Yeah.
So I've definitely been in situations where like I was like, oh, this person's yelling at me, and then my friend will come out of the bar and be like, no, she's telling you to take her parking spot. And I'm like, oh, okay. I thought she was mad at me, but that's really nice. Like, so, yeah, it's I don't know. It's a big mix.
Do you feel like I get the feeling when I hear people talk about touring from both of you that it would be a lot easier if you were a super extroverted party person who was like, have the show and then afterwards be like, hell yeah, let's go clubbing till 3 a.m. But most of the people who do it aren't actually, because you're more you're like creative people, and you're a little bit more like introverted, a little bit less.
Yeah, absolutely. But that is one thing that like, I had a couple of bandmates who'd been with me for a long time, and one of them traveled with me constantly for like 8 years. And I swear it was because if I was tired after a show, I didn't feel like talking, I would just sort of send him out there and be like, hey, you do the talking. I'm not saying he loved it, but you definitely, it's a weird job in a way.
Yeah.
And, people kind of expect it from you. And yeah, you just don't want to be that kind of person that's like, no, I'm too cool to talk to you, because it's not it at all. It's just you're just exhausted or whatever. Yeah. So
yeah. Huh. Was that when you were touring, did people like were there people in Europe or like around Canada who knew about you, or were people kind of encountering you for the first time often?
A mix for sure. I'm never really sure. Like, I'm always amazed that anyone shows up. But I remember a couple of years ago I played a show in San Francisco with a friend of mine, and there was a woman there from like Chile. I don't know what she was visiting or something, but she knew the band. She came to the show because of that. She was in town. So I'm always kind of like hit by, yeah, it's a mix for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I've definitely played the tour in Spain. I played in some towns where there was like sort of a local scene where everyone would go to the venue on like a Monday, like there would be a series on a Monday. And I'm not sure that they all knew who I was, but they were all like, attentive and bought stuff. And it's interesting just to travel and see how these communities form and how like strong they are. And it'll be in a town you're like, oh, I don't know, this might not be so great, but then it's awesome, So
yeah, it's nice.
Yeah,
that sounds really nice. Like that element of connecting with people wherever you go. Like,
yeah.
Although it's stressful sometimes, does sound pretty cool.
Yeah, I think I mostly just feel really dumb because I'll go somewhere and someone will speak like 4 languages, and I'm like, guitaro solo. And then, or like, I know how to say in like 4 languages, like hungry now, bathroom, toilet, or whatever, like, but, and then they'll just start speaking English, and I just feel like why?
Yeah, I tragically only speak English fluently myself, and yeah, it's very frustrating sometimes.
Yeah.
Ben, you mentioned the response to the bicycle build for 2-1, but it sounds like the kind of plays that you're doing would really get people talking. And were you able to like have conversations with the audience after the show, or did you sort of like,
and the plays were deliberately built that way. The more political ones, especially, the plays would be like a shorter 1-act play, like 45 minutes to an hour. And they would end often at a low point with like a sad ending. And we would then all come out and have like a panel discussion with the audience, taking questions to kind of talk through the issues of the play. And sometimes with a professional, sometimes just us with the experience that we'd got leading Q&As with professionals, since often people ask the same things and we give the same answers. And then any of our plays, once when they're in communities as opposed to theaters, like we always have time at the end to go out and talk to people, which was sometimes, I mean, I guess it would really depend on the energy of the play. Like sometimes it would be like, yes, like I'm really excited to go out and like share the energy that I was feeling with that audience some more and talk to people about it. But sometimes, and I mean, I think especially with the plays that were more downer, it would just be like, I've just embodied this like sad ending. I wanna go and decompress from this and not and not deal with
Who has the siren?
Sorry.
That's okay. I just wondered who it was.
Sorry.
But yeah, it sounds like some of those conversations must have gotten really intense.
Yeah, and I mean, like, we had one play, which I guess with the political plays, there are two that I like look back really highly on and think of like, yeah, I'm proud of what we did with that. And one in particular was about like pushing LGBTQ inclusivity in the Mennonite church, where like that was the focus of the play. Like it wasn't just one scene, and it wasn't like the political aim of the play was less to take conservative or exclusive people and make them inclusive, but more to take like the quietly accepting people and make them more loudly accepting.
Right, interesting.
And so the conversations after that were like often incredibly rewarding and some of the most rewarding conversations we've had. And in terms of like the tangible effects of the play and seeing like a church bring us and then later on become an officially accepting, welcoming church, and then like include the fact that our play came to their church as like part of their process. Like hearing about that was like, okay, yeah, like here's tangible results from the work that we're doing, but also like having conversation after conversation after conversation with people who were like just in a different spot on the road and being like, I'm sick of debating scripture. I'm sick of even having scripture being like this moral touchstone that needs to be debated. Like, what does it, and it just, having those conversations over and over and over again can be very rewarding, and also it's just exhausting.
Well, it also sounds like your job was not just actor, but also like faith counselor and counselor at the same time. You know, like there's a big like a psych support aspect to what you were doing as well. Were there so that was around the LGBTQ issue. Was there were there other issues that were more kind of like classically political, or maybe more thorny, or more like two-sided, like more of a conversation? The other play that I'm like quite proud of being a part of was like the theme was how communities, primarily how church communities respond to crime. And that was probably the most ambiguous play, because it wasn't like it was the gist of the play was the protagonists were like upstanding members of a church in the church board and leadership and stuff, and one of them befriends a woman who has a kid and seems to be struggling and wants to help support her, and then finds out that her husband is in jail. She's not divorced. She's and so the play just like looks at how that changes the dynamic, and then what happens, what's going to happen when husband leaves jail and wants to be a part of the community. Like what will the church do? Like, will the husband want to be a part of the church community? And so the play ends with the church essentially rejecting the person. But it kind of puts a rift in the relationship of the couple, where like one thinks it's terrible that this is happening. The other person is like basically in the church leadership position that helped make that decision. Right.
But the final scene is like a dinner where everyone's been invited, and it's this kind of subverted communion thing where no one knows, like that the family doesn't know that the decision has been made and that the person's not going to be welcomed. But so the conversations afterwards aren't just about being welcome no matter what, but kind of exploring the like how can we create safe spaces and communities where like there are accountability processes or things to and that one felt the most like there wasn't just a clear this is right, this is wrong. It was more like this is something that we need to work through and figure out what as a community can we do in these circumstances.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That seems to me like it's great that you're doing the work of something like the LGBTQ, where it's like people need to hear this and you need to get the word out, but at the same time there's not a lot of debate there. It's like it's
well, there shouldn't be. There still is.
Exactly, yeah. But for it, to like tackle a question that is actually kind of difficult with a group of people, I think it's really is kind of a more interesting challenge in some ways. Yeah. And did people ever react in ways that really surprised you, that you were just like, I did not see that interpretation of that situation coming?
I mean, yes. I remember being surprised a bunch of times during the Q&A. So I'm trying to think of specific stuff.
Sorry, I should have asked you this earlier so you had some time to remember.
Yeah, I'll keep thinking on it. And
yeah.
We can come back. Yep.
It's okay. There were more things I wanted to ask you guys about. So yeah, the whole you both mentioned that I'm looking at my notes now. There's something. Oh yeah, there's to sort of like bring the evangelism thing and the land trust thing together. There's a hipster evangelical church that's taking over a large cultural space in Toronto, and you guys both mentioned that in the conversation leading up to this stream. So I don't actually know much about that. Do you guys want to fill me in about what's going on there?
I don't know. I don't know too much about the church itself. I know that it's. I do think that I heard that they're not super into LGBTQ things.
Oh, not at all.
And it's the rehearsal factory on Geary. So I think there's been some confusing things around if they've actually bought the building or if I think they're using it as a way to raise money. The church itself is saying they have to raise money for it. But to be honest, I did not follow it that much this week. People in my neighborhood definitely don't want it. So I'm a little, to be honest, I'm a little confused because when I went to meetings surrounding Geary, which is like a pretty industrial street, all of the residents in the neighborhood want to keep it industrial. Like we all just want it to kind of stay the same. Yeah. So I think changing the zone, I feel like it's zoned in a very specific way that nobody really wanted to change. And I don't see how the church would fit into that, but I could be wrong. But anyway, yeah, it's been pretty hot topic.
For the non-Torontonians, Geary is like a very recently industrial sort of like warehouse zone in the city, and as we were saying earlier, Toronto has really been running out of those in the last 10 years, and it was sort of the one remaining areas that still had some space that was affordable and accessible to the arts community and people. There's a big rehearsal space there, and some performance venues and stuff like that. And so there's a sort of there's a desire in the community to keep it to like maintain that character for a while, but obviously there's a lot of pushback. But I guess just the interesting thing is that, you kind of see that you would kind of expect like the big box stores to move in, or maybe, an Amazon warehouse or something, but a hipster church, I did not see coming. That was a new one on me. And Ben, you mentioned that you knew something about this because in fact there was a documentary about it that you guys ran.
Yeah, and I mean, I watched the documentary after I posted the link in our conversation, and I wasn't surprised by anything in it. Like, it's not like hipster evangelical churches are not unique or like there are many more of them in Toronto, and all of them are experiencing a lot of growth.
Yeah.
And they're experiencing growth all over the world. I think because they're very social media savvy, they're very young person aesthetic savvy in general, and they know how to be sneaky about their use of language towards inclusivity and acceptance and things like that. Where if you talk to any pastor in this kind of church, and like, it doesn't need to be hipster evangelical, like most evangelicals that are trying to witness to non-religious people that have progressive social values in general, they know that they need to hide what they actually believe about certain things, and so they will say, like, come as you are, like you can come, we accept everyone of any orientation, of anything. And it's like, yes, it's true, they are welcoming of anyone, but it's when you want to become a deeper part of the community, and if you want to be up on the stage helping with worship, if you want to become like a decision maker in a board, a church board type environment, or like be baptized into the membership of the church, like that's when they'll be like, oh, we accept you as who you are. Like Jesus made everyone exactly perfect, but just because you want to do certain things doesn't mean you should do certain things. So they'll say, like, it's okay to be gay, but to be married, like sex is only appropriate in marriage, and marriage is only appropriate between a man and a woman. And so, and like that C3 is 110% like in that traditional definition of everything. And like, I just watched the documentary and heard heard the lead pastor sort of say, we accept everyone for who they are, and we want you to walk with Jesus and to be a part of that journey. And I was like, and there it is, walk with Jesus and be a part of that journey towards not having sex outside of straight marriage anymore.
It's so interesting, because I would not have realized that was what that was code for, not having been raised Christian at all, let alone evangelical.
And it's the same with Hillsong and like the churches that Chris Pratt and Justin Bieber are a part of. Like they're all a part of that that branch of evangelicalism, and they use very similar language when they talk about it.
Wow. I'd like to. So Jared is doing something noisy right now, but I would like to. I would like to see the. I want to see the cream. Can you unmute yourself? There we go.
Yeah. This is an Italian meringue. I think it's actually done now, so I can stay unmuted.
Okay.
But it's it's egg whites with a hot sugar syrup that actually like cooks it and helps stabilize it.
It's very exciting.
That's why I was over at the stove doing nothing for several minutes.
All right. No, so this is now has to be dolloped and baked. Is that what's going to happen with it, or?
No. What's going to happen with it is it's going to get mixed with this custard.
Okay.
That I made to make it really light and fluffy, and then it's going to just get put in the middle of the thing.
So
of the gâteau.
Are there raw egg whites in this thing?
No, because the syrup cooks them.
Oh, I see. Interesting.
Allegedly, I don't.
Krista might know if she's still around. I also wanted to ask you if you had any insights into hipster evangelical churches from your own experience, or if that's something you want to talk about.
I don't have any experience with the hipster ones.
No. Did any of the people that you grew up with wind up in the? I find this such a weird aesthetic. The whole sort of like, we're cool.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Christian rock kind of, but I don't know very much about it.
Some of them certainly did. Yeah, I mean, we weren't hipster, but we definitely did the Hillsong catalog in our services and all that.
Did you guys? Is that something that the kind of theater that Ben is talking about? Is that something that happened in your community?
No.
I may be
not
reaching.
that for sure. Not that.
Okay.
Would not have been a very welcoming environment for that kind of theater. No. Like one time we had like a traveling troupe of actors do the, I don't know, it was the Last Supper or something like that kind of thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it was like a weird musical.
Oh my god.
Sort of. It was. I had a lot of secondhand embarrassment that night.
It was cringe.
It was, yeah. I mean, that kind of earnest, like white people playing all the biblical character stuff was always a little bit cringe. So,
oh man.
With like songs that were not great.
A lot of the times, especially like, I mean, often when we toured to places we'd been before, there was then an expectation of like, oh, okay, I know what kind of play this is going to be. But when we were going to churches that we hadn't been to before, often we would get comments afterwards from people saying, oh, I thought this was going to be like a really cringy thing. Like, I think you had experienced, like, this was actually theater and this was cool. Thank you. Okay. Cool. If you thought it was going to be that cringy, why did you?
Why are you even here?
Krista, was that the Puyallup one? Because they were like, I never went there, but
what even is that?
Yeah, Puyallup. Puyallup is a town south
okay.
of Seattle, between here and Tacoma. As if everybody involved knows where Tacoma is. So the denomination that we grew up in was Foursquare, which is like Pentecostal, like weirdos. But like we let women be pastors. We were founded by a woman, so it was like, we were cool. But Puyallup Foursquare is like the big hipster Foursquare church in Washington. Which, was very performative and embarrassing. I only ever experienced it through like videos they would put out to promote stuff, and it was just like the youth pastor rapping about it was the kind of thing where it was like, oh no, I know I'm being dorky, so that makes it cool. It didn't.
You said the pastor was rapping?
The youth pastor, yeah. So he was like the young, hip youth pastor doing this ironically, but it was like,
you're all totally like, I had no idea this scene existed. This is all new to me. So this is great. I had no idea that white evangelical church. I had no idea this was a thing.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh god. It was so embarrassing, and they had the money to put out like really sleekly produced videos, and it was like just this guy's ego for 3 minutes at a time. It was unbearable.
Ouch.
I want to know what kind of food is being had at these churches. Like, is it like Jell-o salad? Is it like, like, I want to know if it's like really cool food or really, anyway.
Washington isn't really a Jell-o salad kind of state, so I can safely say it wasn't that. Of course they did.
Come for the espresso bar, stay for the cultural appropriation.
That's what every white evangelical hipster church has a coffee bar. Yeah. if it's big enough. If it's big enough.
Wow.
It's kind of the dream that they grow to the point where they can have a coffee bar.
Or they start with a coffee bar. To get people in the door.
There's yeah.
Wow, I had not. Maybe you know what? I feel like if it's not a skit on Portlandia, I might miss it. Like I'm like, whoa, I didn't see this coming. Why wasn't this on Portlandia? Because there was some episode on Portlandia where someone exterminates with like kombucha, and I was like, oh, maybe that's gonna happen here. So
maybe a thing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I had no idea. So thanks for telling me all.
Yeah. I too know nothing about, did not grow up with this, but I know that both of you guys did. Once again, remember that. And so although I guess you're within the under the very large umbrella of evangelism or Christianity, you had quite different backgrounds. But yeah, the whole sort of like we'll bring the kids in with the espresso and the rap music and the I mean, but it works though, doesn't it? Because like you were saying, it's a growing movement. It's a growing church.
Yeah. I went to a Mennonite Bible college in BC. Like my any post-secondary education I have is a Bible college, and that Bible college, like Mennonites in general tend to have more progressive tendencies than other evangelicals, with major caveats. But this Bible college was like the conservative edge of Mennonites,
right?
And so like a lot of the, I mean, we're calling it hipster evangelical, but in a lot of ways it's just like young white evangelical, young-ish white evangelical. But like my education was steeped in that. And I think it kind of became a kiln where my more progressive values like were baked even harder because of that environment.
Oh, that's interesting. Because because I only encounter people who are ex-evangelicals. Like I always think like surely this just drives everyone out. But clearly there are a lot of people who I don't meet or talk to who are still in there who
because they're all hanging out with each other.
Yeah, exactly. They're in a little pod.
Yeah, there's a huge. Not drive, that's the right word. Sort of incentive to hang out within that, and they, depending on the church, they kind of reinforce that by being like, well, if you're Christian, people outside the church are going to think you're weird. So this is a safe place for you because you're weird like the rest of us. The world is just going to hate you, and it's this this messaging that you just get,
right?
And it's not. Great.
Well, it's also like in such fascinating juxtaposition to like the other side, which is like go out into the world and convert it.
Yeah.
But
the way you're trained to do it, is so aggressive and off-putting that it kind of reinforces the boundary. Where like, of course, you're going to come on too strong. You're going to be annoyed. This is my experience, at least. I know it's not universal, but. You like just ask the person next to you on the bus, do they know Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior? I'm like, nobody on the bus wants to have that conversation. So they're going to look at you funny, and you're going to be like, well, they hate me because I'm the light of the world. And then you go back to church where everybody understands, and it is kind of self-reinforcing in that way. For some denominations, some subsets, this is not blending the way I hoped it would.
What are you trying to do there, Jared?
This is the creme chabouste. This is the custard and the meringue. And it's supposed to be, I think, a lot smoother. It is a little chunky.
Krista, Jared's creme chabouche is chunky. What should he do?
I think I just have to keep going until it's a little smoother.
Krista says to fold it with a whisk.
Well, now you tell me.
Oh my gosh.
Good thing I've got like 3 of them.
So yeah, this is just anyway, that whole evangelism thing is obviously a large topic that might be tricky to talk about in a lot of ways, but it feeds back into this idea of that it feeds on people's sense of isolation and the social isolation, the disconnectedness that people feel. It offers a way out of that and a sense of community. And it's just like, I guess once you're in there, these people are your friends. Do you want to leave? No. So, Krista's saying regarding the with Moira voice, just
At least I know how to do that.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, this doesn't look too bad.
Oh, I don't have a segue for this, but I was totally going to ask you about this, Ben, and I got totally sidetracked. So, roller coasters. a complete change of subject. When I met you, okay, so when I met Ben, I forget how it first came up, but he started talking about roller coasters at one time, and you know more about roller coasters and are more interested in them. And I had never thought of roller coasters as a thing that, you know, could be regarded as an art form and a cultural expression. But you had this whole background on it. So tell us of roller coasters.
Yeah, and I mean,
really good. Sorry.
Okay.
Oh,
That's really, really good.
I mean, my obsession is kind of a combination of roller coasters and theme parks in general, and I think that there's like slightly different flavors for each. And I was thinking about it after your email, like with roller coasters, and I think what holds them together, and like my obsession with immersive theater is a huge part of this as well. Like I think that I just really like art where the viewer's experience is like an integral piece of the art.
Yeah.
So like with a roller coaster, like you could see it and look at it as like a kinetic sculpture with the train moving, but then you ride it, and there's also like that experience of riding it. And with roller coasters, I love the packaging of a safe thrill, where like you don't feel like you're safe. You feel you're moving incredibly fast. You're getting experiences of flight, of being turned around in all these ways. But there's also like this complete trust in the work because it's been inspected, because it's been designed for safety, that like there isn't so that you're able to just throw yourself into these like really unique circumstances, but yet trust that you're going to be completely okay doing it. And so that's the roller coaster element. With theme parks, I love stuff that immerses you into a place or a theme or a story or an idea. And I'm aware that like
theater then, yeah,
and like my love for theme parks came before the love for immersive theater. But I just like the most scared that I've ever been on a ride in my life was the Jaws ride at Universal in Orlando, where like the most you physically feel is a boat rocking side to side. But the queue line, like every element of the story of the ride, rammed home that you weren't at a theme park in Florida. You were in New England lining up for a boat tour of the place of the true story that Jaws was based off of. And so then like there's this story where you, the rider of the ride, are like a character in the story that you're experiencing, where you're a tourist in the boat that then gets attacked by the shark a bunch of times. And the ride did such a good job of like telling that story. And I guess I was so eager to like become a part of that story that there were points of the ride where I forgot that I was on a ride, and I saw this like kind of cheesy robotic shark and was able to like think it was a shark or at least play my role.
Suspend your disbelief.
Yeah, like I was able to completely suspend my disbelief. There's a point where you're in a boathouse and you know a shark is about to attack, and I was absolutely petrified of this shark in this boathouse. And then the shark attacks, your boat escapes out of the boathouse, and you've got like a live tour guide on the boat sort of saying, oh, everyone keep an eye out for the shark. We don't know where it's going to come from next. And I saw the dorsal fin go by in the distance, and I just stood up and screamed shark. Not at all thinking like, oh, I'm performing as a part of this. Like I was...
They probably love that though. They're so happy when like one guy really gets into it.
Yeah. And so I love like that Jaws experience was kind of the epitome of the immersive theme park ride experience for me. But I love that in general. And Disney has really leaned into it with the new Star Wars lands, where rather than just experiencing stuff that happened in the movies, like they have this new planet that you're visiting that they created for the theme park, and the rides tell stories that kind of fit in around the movie, but like there's a very specific time in the Star Wars story where that land takes place. And so everyone who visits and goes on the rides is like just becoming a part of that story.
When you say land, I thought you said land, and then I think local area network when I think land. Like, is that
sorry, LAND.
Oh, okay.
With, I guess, generally, some theme parks have different ways of putting it, but especially after Disneyland kind of got the ball rolling with Frontierland, Adventureland, Tomorrowland, generally an area of a theme park that is themed to one specific theme is called a land.
Like Westworld.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like Westworld is totally playing with and subverting that.
Yeah. So
and challenging that.
Yeah. Sort of taking that to a logical conclusion and beyond. Like when you're describing that, the experience of the roller coaster, especially, and then actually all the rest of it, it sounds a lot like horror, like what people get out of horror, which is like even just watching a horror movie, which is that contained like a cathartic experience of being really frightened, but in a safe, contained way where you're not actually at risk. But it's more of a physical version of that.
Yeah, and I'd say like there's a degree of that, but it also my favorite roller coasters aren't the ones that scare me. They're the ones that like I don't. It's not the feeling of fear so much as the feeling of flight. Right. So like I agree that there's definitely that sense of cathartic, like doing something and being safe. But with horror, and I mean I've stopped watching horror movies during the pandemic just because like I don't want to feel bad with my entertainment. I want to feel good. And so I think that like my one twist to that would be that like theme parks, some of the stuff is going to be like horror style to make you feel bad, but a lot of it feels like uplifting and good too.
Yeah. Huh. Liz, what are your feelings on roller coasters and horror movies? The things that make you feel unsettled?
I love roller coasters. I went on the Cyclone just before the pandemic in Coney Island, and I got like a chiropractic adjustment. Like I was like, it was awesome. But I do think about, I also, because when you ask that question, I box a few times a week and I watch boxing, and I feel like with horror movies and with like maybe slightly scary things, it kind of like forces you to change this thing about yourself in a way. But you because when you watch a horror movie, it's like, it's scary because it forces change. I thought about it a lot. I'm just trying to think of like how, but it's just because it's unpredictable, right? Like you can't, and you have to be okay with it. And as we've seen in the pandemic, people are not okay with that. So it's like you can't have too much of it around or something. But I do love roller coasters. I like being. It's like it's kind of a communal thing too, and
they're
just fun. They're fun. Yeah. So people, I think, forget how to have fun sometimes. So, but I agree with you, Ben. I don't actually watch a lot of horror movies, only because I find the newer ones a little bit too gory, and I'm not interested in. Like I just can't. I mean, I watched Hereditary and stuff like that, but when it's really super gross, I just can't. I just don't want it. So.
Yeah, I prefer the psychological, like creeping you out with the situation horror movies more myself.
Totally.
I'm really interested in this idea that it forces you to change watching a horror movie a bit. Can you expand on that?
Like,
so interesting.
I feel like it. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like. I had like the thesis worked out, I think, when it occurred to me, and now I've lost it a bit, but it's like when you see something scary and then you can't forget it, and you're like, I can't unsee that now, or I can't undo the thing, so I have to come up with like a coping mechanism to deal with the thing.
Right.
And so you have to change to accommodate that.
Oh, that's interesting. Wow. Yeah. Krista, So she's been, and I kind of get this. I've been actually watching a lot of horror movies during the pandemic because it's nice to be stressed about something that's not the world I'm living in. And I think that's part of the appeal. Like, you get really stressed out, and then the movie ends, and you're like, oh, it's something I don't have to worry about. Like I said before, I like horror movies for that reason, specifically, that are about things that I'm not scared of in real life. Like movies that are about ghosts or demons or whatever, because I'm just like, when it's over, it's over. I'm not really like fussed about ghosts. Whereas if it's a horror movie about, like, there's one that I kind of want to watch, but I haven't been able to, that is Michael Haneke's Funny Games, which is about like a home invasion. Yeah, Ben,
No,
Ben
thank
is
you.
like, should I watch it, or have you seen it?
Well, it's
I'm scared of that movie. That's the movie I'm too scared to watch.
well, that one, like, the filmmaker's whole point,
Mhm.
at least as far as I understand it, was to make a movie that a good person will turn off and not finish. And that he's kind of like challenging you as the movie goes on. Like, are you going to keep watching this? Like, you should really turn this off. Are you going to keep watching this? And I've read some stuff. Like, I think that was his. And I'm like, I started watching it way before the pandemic and was just like, and I guess I'd read enough about it to kind of know how it ended, and was just like, I don't want to put myself through everything to get to that point that I know is coming. I'm just going to stop.
Wow. Yeah. And he felt strongly enough about it that he remade the entire movie in English. Like, it's one of those scene by scene remakes in English from the Dutch version. Yeah. But yeah, it sounds just grueling, and I don't really want to, yet at the same time I'm kind of like, I'm curious about it. Maybe I'll just like read a summary or something. But
and I mean, it could be a fun experiment to just like give yourself permission to turn it off, and like see, okay,
how far
I'll just start and see where I get to. Yeah. But give yourself permission.
Huh.
I couldn't finish it, honestly. But I don't have a very strong constitution for certain things, I would say.
Yeah, it sounds intensely violent, and but I mean, another thing that I do find interesting about horror is that it does force you to sort of look at things that you wouldn't usually look at, but it's often an underrated feature of horror movies. I think I often find them very sad. Like, people die, and then and then there are the survivors, and I mean, that's sort of the, like, Hereditary and Midsommar, that sort of is more foregrounded. Like, some of the more contemporary movies, you kind of see that more, but there's stuff about like grief and trauma, and like it can have an ending that's really unhappy and get away with that, and you can't really do that in any other genre. You have to have like the uplifting, triumph of the human spirit ending, and in horror can just be like, nope. This shit sucks. It's gonna end badly.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I had a really hard time with Wes Craven movies because I'd seen Last House on the Left like a long time ago, and then my husband was like, "Let's watch The Hills Have Eyes," but like not the remake, the original. And I was like, I don't know if I can do it. I really don't. And I finally watched it, and it was fine. But there's something about 70s horror and the film stock, and there's something about it really, like, it's like it can kind of destroy me, but you're right. I like Michael Haneke, and there's a few other people who their hand at horror is just, whoa, yeah. I also really like, on the other hand, I really like David Cronenberg, and like, it's weird. I'll take violence if it's in this comical, like, it almost seems like it's not real. You're like,
it's not real.
So I think the quantities I can take it in are really strange. Like,
I think that's key. Yeah, that it's not real, that there's this kind of distance. It's when there's, and this is like the Haneke movie, I think, is kind of violates this, and that's why I don't want to watch it. It's when there's this sense of like intense realism, intense, like, this could happen. It becomes really dark, really hard to watch.
Yeah,
Jared, you're there's some more piping action happening here.
It's time to assemble.
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
Oh, it's exciting.
So I'm gonna pipe some whipped cream around this sort of blobby style.
I hate to ask you while you're doing this, but is there a way you could angle your camera down just slightly?
There we go.
Yes, perfect.
Did you make another cream, or was it just the meringue pastry, or the meringue custard thing?
Yeah.
This is whipped cream.
Okay.
So I did. Yeah, that doesn't look like the worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
It's probably a good thing I'm not there because I love pastry cream so much. I could just like dive into an entire bowl of it, and this looks amazingly creamy.
This looks great.
Oh my goodness! So how many of the battlements do you have there? That you can...
I actually might have enough to fill in.
Okay.
So
what are you gonna? You're gonna put this ring around, and then is there anything else?
No, I don't. I have an odd number. So it's just gonna be.
You can just eat one.
I can ruin the piping slightly.
Slightly.
Just shift some of them in there. It's fine. Nobody's going to actually see this except me.
There we go.
Well, that's not true. So, okay, so that's there. And then I have to put in more of this.
And that's the sugar syrup and the egg, right?
This is the chabousse. So this is the pastry cream with the Italian meringue.
So what is it? Does it have vanilla in it, or is it just?
It does.
Yes.
The only flavoring in this is vanilla in this cream.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, I don't know, put some rose water or cardamom, or something that's not just vanilla. And then I was like, actually, I love vanilla.
Let the vanilla shine.
Yeah, no, it's really good. People, I think, don't really appreciate it because it's everywhere.
Yeah. No, but good vanilla. Also, there's fake vanilla that is just kind of there, but really good vanilla is very, very good.
No, I scraped out the center of a vanilla pod for this.
Ooh.
Wow.
Very nice. And then there's caramel that is going to be something.
That is on the stove right now. So pipe the remaining cream on top. This is going to be so much cream.
Oh well.
Krista's probably cringing watching this.
You were mentioning the Cyclone earlier, and I got a chance to ride it a couple years ago, and before I rode it, like I thought, well, I have to ride this. This is this historical artifact. I don't know when I'll be back here. I have to ride it. And then I was just so shocked by how good it was.
Yeah.
I was just thinking like this, I'm going to ride a museum piece. And then going down the hill, I was just like, oh, this is not what I was expecting. And it was like one of the best roller coaster experiences I've had.
It's it's really good. I don't know if it's the construction. I don't know. The speed. It's amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
What are the innovations in roller coaster technology now that are different?
The one of the big things right now is all these names are escaping me, but I think it's RMC, Rocky Mountain Company, makes two of like the biggest types of roller coasters that are popular and new right now, where there's one that's like just called T-Rex track, where instead of having like two tracks that the wheels lock onto and the thing goes, it's just like one piece that that the cars then lock into in various ways. And if you just look at pictures of the track, like it looks so much like this just weird and wild kinetic sculpture, because it's just this like ribbon that winds around, and because it's just the one piece, there doesn't need to be as much structural pieces that are holding this one ribbon up. So they just look wild. And then that same company does hybrid wooden metal roller coasters, where they will take wooden roller coasters with their skeletal structures and kind of keep the larger structure, but change and add this new track path where it kind of feels and looks like a wooden roller coaster, but because it's metal track, they can twist and do inversions and do stuff that you just would never expect a roller coaster on that kind of wooden framework to do. And they look beautiful in a different way than the T-Rex style ones. And they're supposed to ride amazingly too. I haven't had a chance to be on either, but when they open, they're often considered some of the best roller coasters in the world now.
They're gonna open back up. It's gonna be a hot roller coaster summer. Where are those located?
They're all over the States,
Okay.
and they're popping up more and more in the States. I don't think we have any RMCs in Canada yet, and they're a bunch. I think there are a bunch in Europe and some in Asia as well.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Do you think that is the X closing? I heard that the X might close. In Toronto.
Well,
Yeah.
I know that it's been canceled again for this year, and people are kind of up in arms about it because by the time it happens, like, it's far enough in the future that it seems like it should be okay, at least in some form. But yeah, I heard that too, and I don't know if it's true that it might actually shut down. Because the one in Ottawa used to have its own X, and that shut down about 10 years ago after like 80 years or whatever. So.
Oh, okay.
But it seems to me, I feel like there would be more of a fight over the CNE shutting down because it's such a big deal.
Yeah.
You know? And so many people, it's an important economic thing for a lot of people. And so many people go that, yeah, I think there's going to be, if it's in danger, I think there's going to be a push to save it, I would imagine.
Yeah. Okay. I thought so too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be super weird if it just vanished without like a really big attempt to save it.
Yeah.
It seems to me.
Totally.
Oh my gosh. So we're at 6. Jared, are you close enough to caramel that we want to just like keep going a bit and you can come back?
I think so. It's turning a little golden.
Okay. Well,
So it shouldn't be that much longer.
We can hang out a little bit longer for the caramel, the finishing touch. We've had pretty good luck so far with these recipes that they like really wrap up.
Yeah. I would have been honestly I would have been done by now, but I started making the custard roll.
Okay.
The recipe was
Chris has a warning.
Yes. Yeah, no, I have made caramel before. I started making the custard and the recipe was not very clearly written, so it said 175 grams of sugar and the egg yolks and all that. And then I put all the sugar in and the egg yolks and I was like, this is kind of weird. This is kind of pasty. This isn't right. And then I reread the instructions and it was like, take 50 grams of the sugar. So I had to start over. I know I've got a bunch of not custard. So yeah, that put me back a little bit because I had to separate 4 more eggs.
Oh. Wait, did that happen? Did that happen while we were chatting, or did that?
Yeah, but I didn't want to interrupt anybody and be like, "I fucked up. Stop talking and pay attention to my mistake."
See, if you hadn't told us, we wouldn't even have known. But look,
it looks beautiful.
It looks great.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Traditionally, sorry.
I was just going to say.
You'd think after a year of
we would know how to
Zoom, people would be better. I'll just finish what I was going to say really fast. I think traditionally you're supposed to, the ones that you put around the top, the buns that you put around the top, you're supposed to dip them in the caramel so there's a coating on them. But that just seemed like it would glue my face together, and I didn't want that. So I'm going to, it's getting close. Just gonna like drizzle around it, sort of a web sort of thing, rather than a hard sugar coating that is technically, I think, supposed to be there.
Is this a caramel that will harden into like a crunchy sauce, or will it stay?
Yes, it's gonna harden. It's just sugar. It's gonna.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Which is why I didn't want to have the hard shell. It was.
Yeah. I love caramel.
Speaking of CNE and theme parks in general, I just wanted to recognize, I think either today or one day before or one day after is the 50th anniversary of the opening of Ontario Place.
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
yeah.
That's amazing.
Happy Ontario Place Day, yes.
Which
is also
Place?
very much up in the air. Okay, so it's a theme park, which is down by the waterfront. Well, right now it's I'm realizing I'm having kind of a hard time summarizing the Ontario Place story. It was a theme park in the 1970s. And I remember going to it as a child, and everyone who like remembers the 70s and 80s Ontario Place has fond memories of it because it was super cool. It's right within the city of Toronto, but right down at the waterfront. We don't have a lot of cool stuff on our waterfront, so it's kind of a cool thing. It has really cool, like 60s, 70s architecture. Like it has these pods that are hovering over the water on stilts, and it has a buckyball. It has this giant dome that has a cinema inside it, like a sphere. It's very cool looking. Then the theme park shut down in like the early 2000s, I want to say, and then
I think more like not that long ago, like 2012.
Yeah,
like I think the early 2010s.
Okay. And then weirdly enough, it was shut down, but you could go in and wander around. So it's this actual derelict theme park in the city of Toronto that you could go into and kind of roam around in the rides that were growing over with baby trees, and it was just this really cool liminal space for a while. And then there was like a music and art festival there. What was it called again? I think you guys remember.
Oh,
I forget the name of it. But it was amazing. It was so good. That was like 2 years ago in the summer. They had a lot of installation art and music performances and stuff. And it was all in this, like, again, oh my God.
That's awesome.
It's bubbling. Very nice.
Yeah.
I bet it smells. How does it smell in your apartment right now, Jared?
It smells like vanilla and caramelized sugar. So it's pretty great.
But yeah, so it was, but now it's kind of up in the air, and our premier, who sucks, wants to make it into, I don't know, condos or sell it to his developer buddies or whatever. But it belongs to the province of Ontario, so he shouldn't just be able to do that because he's premier. Do either of you guys know about like what is up with it right now? The latest?
No. It's like one of the few places that I still go and walk to.
Yeah.
They're starting to take down some of the fake rock work from the Flume ride.
Oh, really?
So if you want to like see it in that liminal in its liminal space and still see some of the remnants of the rides, I would say go as soon as you can, because I don't know how long that stuff will still be there.
Yeah, when they had the festival there are these silos, and I forget what was in them.
They were built like the theme park from the beginning was a response to Montreal's World's Fair, and to kind of like continue the feeling and spirit of that fair in Ontario. And then I don't think you could even really call it a theme park until the 70s and 80s, when they started to it lost a bit of its World Fairness and became a bit more like a theme park. And so those silos were added when they added a Northern Ontario. It was supposed to feel like a Northern Ontario exhibit at a World Fair.
Okay.
So they built that. And then I think that Northern Ontario thing was still there when they built the Wilderness Adventure ride to kind of be a Northern Ontario themed flume. And then when it became more theme parkish, less World Fair, they turned those silos into the Mega Maze, which is how I remember them. And then right before they closed, they turned it into like a Science Center-y weather exhibit.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because I just remember when the because I think the last time I actually went to it when it was open, I was a small child, and it was the 1970s. When I went for the what they did with that for the for this festival was they had all these art installations in the silos, and but there's also these flumes, and so you were like going through the flumes and then into the silos. You're on this kind of like journey through all these really weird spaces, and then you would encounter this art and these sculptures, along the way, and it was super. I love that stuff. But oh my goodness, there's caramel on the cake. It is complete.
Wow.
The cake is complete. Look at that.
Very cool.
Once again, if Chris is watching, he's going to be disappointed that there was no fail. Chris was when you remember when you did the opera cake, and Chris was like, "You promised fail." I was expecting fail.
I don't think I promised failure.
He seemed to feel that fail was on the menu, but it was not. And so, did you butter that bowl, and now you're making?
Yeah, I've just got so much left. I figured I might as well. I'm going to try a cage.
Oh wow!
It's not, or a dome, I guess. It's not
Yeah.
going to be very good, but
Like, how is it?
it's
gonna
easier
come
than
off?
cleaning the pot.
Yeah. How are you going to get it off the bowl though? Did you butter the bowl? Like, how does it?
I buttered it.
Okay. Huh. Have you
It's
done this
probably
before,
going
or
to be nope. Chris, is this the fail you're looking for? Because it's probably going to be.
Well, you'll just have to lick it all off the bowl.
Ugh, that's so much sugar, though.
So much sugar.
Honestly,
Oh
doing this is going to be easier than cleaning this off. If it doesn't work, is going to be easier than cleaning this pot. So
there is a lot of cleanup for you to do, I have to say, with this.
there is, yeah.
It is that's the thing about the complex.
Ooh,
So is anyone going to help you
threads.
eat this thing, or can you freeze part
Yeah.
of it, or what's going to happen? Okay.
You can freeze it. Girlfriend's coming over later today, I think, and probably Krista will. I'm volunteering her to eat this. Okay, now it's thickening too much to. So, yeah, I'll let that cool a little bit, and then somehow get it off there. We'll see.
This is anticipating. Oh my god. Yeah.
It smells really good.
Oh, I believe you. I am jealous now. Wow. Is there any way you can like move the camera closer to it, or? Krista says.
No, I know that, but this is.
He's
I'm going to put it on the thing.
Oh. It's a cake-sized cage. So.
Yeah.
Huh.
And again, I was just trying to get it out of the pot. I'm not trying to be.
Yes. It's a beautiful color. It's the right color for caramel.
It is. It is so cool. I've done this, not this, but I've made caramel several times to make gingerbread houses with.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm more or less familiar with it as a concept. There is so much.
There's so much sugar.
There is so much of the creme boost left.
What can you do with the leftover? So that's the leftover. The I'm gonna forget what it's called again.
The
caramel,
shaboust.
the custard. What could you like dollop that on fruit or something? Is there other-
Yeah, it's basically just a really light custard. You can do whatever.
Okay. Very nice.
Or some
breakfast.
fruit
You
in
can
it.
have it for breakfast.
No.
Oh my gosh.
I got a bunch of puff pastry left. I might make some puy d'amour or something.
What is a puy d'amour?
Oh, it's a circle. Oh, I'd have to make more choux pastry for it though. Ugh. They're
Krista
little
agrees with me.
they're little circles of puff pastry with a ring of choux pastry. It's a lot like this actually, but smaller. And then you put some strawberry jam or compote or whatever in the center of this little well, and then fill that with the pastry cream, and then put some sugar on that and caramelize it a little bit. It's a little bit like a creme brulee, a little bit like this. I've never had one, but I knew I'd have leftover pastry, and it seemed like it could be fun.
So once again, we have Jared has attempted something extremely difficult, and it looks delicious, and I can't eat it because I'm not in Seattle, but that's probably a good thing calorie-wise. But
yeah, there's just so much here.
Liz and Ben, this has been really interesting. So thank you so much for coming and watching the baking process and being part of this. Oh look, is it gonna come up? This is what I'm really curious about.
Yeah, it's still a little soft.
Okay.
But I really want to plop it on there before we sign off.
Yeah. If you guys, we're not in a huge hurry. If you guys have any other questions for each other or for Jared about this process, anything else you want to say?
No, I always buy puff pastry. I don't know why people would want to make it like from scratch.
I don't either.
Is it like a million times better, or is it like a little bit better, or is it,
Oh, it's coming. Oh. Honestly, I want to make it once just to see, but I wouldn't do it as a regular thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too interested. And it's so easy. You buy it, you thaw it, it works.
Ooh. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Okay, that is the most exciting part of the process so far. Look at it.
Sorry, I didn't fail at this either, Chris.
Well, it's not on yet.
Look at it. La.
Okay, now I'm gonna eat some.
Beautiful.
Okay, you have to take a
fun.
beauty shot of it though.
Yeah.
You have to take several very nicely styled shots of that, because that is really worth photographing. Oh my gosh. Yay.
Get some of this crap out of the way.
Anyway, Ben, Liz. I think you were saying something before, the excitement of the caramel emerging from its
Oh no,
shell.
I love shortcut. The puff pastry thing is always, I don't know, just always amazed me that people would want to make it from scratch. I don't know why. It seems
It's a lot of work.
it's a lot of work.
Mhm. I would like to say I'm inspired to go and cook something exciting, but it's 30 degrees here in Toronto and it's humid, and I'll probably just I have some frozen cheesecake in my freezer that I'll probably that seems about the speed for today.
I'm cutting into it.
Oh. While he does that, Liz, do you want to plug anything that people should download or listen to or go and watch?
Ooh, that was satisfying.
Did you ask me or?
Yeah. Oh, so you. You.
I'm working on. There's some covers that I'm releasing. Like every probably it'll come out later this year. But there's a kind of a nice, happier track on the Picastro page called Hangman by this band. They're called Fire on Fire, and they released a record on Young God, which is like Michael Giraud's record label, like a while ago. But they have another band called Big Blood, and they're some of my favorite musicians ever. So go listen to Big Blood too. But yeah, I'm working on that and some other things. But that seems like manageable for most people. I feel like there's a lot of stuff going on, you know? Like you have to kind of do small things or something. I don't know.
Is the Bandcamp page a good place for people to? So yeah, okay. It's
great, and you don't have to pay anything. Like I think it's free for I don't know how many streams or something, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And Ben, Hot Docs I should put in.
Yeah, I mean, if for anyone that's in Canada, if they haven't checked out Hot Docs offering, I would recommend you can just go to hotdocscinema.ca. I'll also plug, like, I'm not a part of the theater troupe anymore, but it still exists and they're still making work. And if you want to see what I think that they've tried to move a bit away from being predominantly Mennonite as they were before, but that's Theater of the Beat. And I think theaterofthebeat.ca is the website. And yeah, it's just see what, if you're interested in political theater in a Zoom context, they've been doing some stuff with that as well.
Oh, they've been doing Zoom stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's kind of cool. Here it is. Okay. So are we done, Jared? How is it? Are you eating it? Oh my god.
Yeah. Their sugar is really crunchy. This is really good.
It's not you're not making the moany noises that the opera cake inspired.
It is less good than the opera cake was. It's really good.
Yeah.
But it's not at that level.
It's not quite the...
No, I think if I were to make this again, I would do some things differently.
Oh, like what?
I probably would add something besides vanilla, mostly because it's just a lot of sweet and vanilla, and there isn't. It needs a third thing, like even just a little shaving of chocolate over it or something, because it's it's kind of one note. So
interesting. It would be good to like cut the cream and sweetness with something maybe tart or something, or in some way.
Maybe like a little lemon zest or something. It's almost like a creme brulee. Is this the flavor?
Right.
The flavor profile,
which is good, but a little goes a long way. Yeah.
Yeah, like that one little wedge was as much as I want to eat today. There's so much left.
Distribute it to your friends. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna end the broadcast. Ben and Liz, you don't have to hop off right away, but we are going to go offline. So everyone who watched from home or who is watching from home later, thanks so much for joining us. If you have any questions for the guests, or if you want to like hop on a future show, let me know. Yeah, and we will see you at some point in the future when Jared comes up with another elaborate thing that he wants to cook. So
Okay. Bye.